Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Wel, bore da bawb, croeso I wythnos Technoleg Cymru. Welcome everybody to Wales Tech Week. What a fantastic video that was. I was expecting it to kick into Tron or something from the 1980s. Good deep voice. Got a really exciting panel here today to talk about photonics and precision medicine in life sciences. Life sciences and health obviously had a very, very busy year over the last 18 months, and I hope we'll have a very lively discussion. We start with a video and then 10-minute presentations from Jared, Dean and Simon, who I think you can see on screen right now. And then there'll be a Q&A open to all of you who are participating. At the end, we'll have 20 minutes to 30 minutes for that. So can I just encourage those of you who are watching to post any questions that you have in terms of the comments. Fel wedes I, mae wedi bod yn flwyddyn brysur iawn. Mae mater i'r pandemig wedi newid llawer iawn yn arbennig o ran technoleg a gwyddorau bywyd. My name's Ifan. I should have introduced myself, my apologies. I work in the health department in Welsh Government. As you can imagine, it's been a very busy year, and I lead a number of areas, including digital technology, innovation and partnerships with universities that have really seen a transformation in the last year and a half. So MedTech is technology, particularly in medicine, really is in a moment, I think, where it's going to take off in terms of devices and diagnostics and digital, and that's a large part of what we'll be talking about today in terms of photonics and precision medicine, particularly. And there's just one thing I want to flag at the beginning, which is that Wales, really has been very impressive in terms of many aspects of its COVID response. Our contact tracing has delivered really outstanding performance using a digital platform across the whole of Wales. Our vaccine performance, as I'm sure you will have seen on social media and on the news, is genuinely world leading. It's around 10% ahead of the rest of the UK at the moment off the same supply because of efficiency of delivery. But things you might not know as well about the genomics analysis of new variants in COVID. During the later part of 2020, Wales was doing more genomic sequencing each week than France had done in the whole year. And our labs, our Public Health Wales microbiology and pathogen genomics labs have really been leading there. So we've got quite a few things where the Welsh response has been really impressive in the NHS, which is the bit that I'm most familiar with. But it's partnering with industry, which is really going to unlock the value in future. So without further ado, I'll move on to a video initially, and then I'll introduce the speakers one at a time. The video comes from, and I'm just checking my my notes here, from Andrew Rickman. I'm hoping that the magic of technology will make the videos start around about now.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be speaking at the Wales Tech Week event. This is now in its second year after a successful virtual debut last year. As a UK technology-based company, we are always proud to be promoting British technology around the world, and the Welsh tech sector is a significant contributor, especially in the field of compound semiconductors. One of the main goals of the festival is to showcase how technology is impacting, enabling, and improving our lives. With that in mind, I'm going to be talking about a subject close to all of our hearts: healthcare. The pandemic has had a profound effect on our lives, but has also driven change in how we monitor our health and communicate with our healthcare providers. Many of these changes are here to stay. I'm going to talk about how Rockley is using photonics to create cost-effective remote health monitoring solutions for consumers and beyond. So the basis of Rockley photonics technology is a field called silicon photonics. And silicon photonics was an idea first proposed by Richard Sorov in the mid-1980s. Silicon photonics is the optical analogy of silicon microelectronics. On a photonics chip, we are processing, communicating, and sensing information optically. Now, I was lucky enough to become involved in the technology early on and to work with Professor Graham Reed at Surrey University now the Professor of Silicon Photonics at Southampton University. I formed the first company to commercialize silicon photonics, Bookham Technology. It was backed by Intel and Cisco, and we took it public on the NASDAQ and the London Stock Exchange. It went on to become one of the world's largest fiber optic communication component companies, and changed its name in 2009 to Oclaro, and was acquired by Lumentum, another NASDAQ-listed company, in about 2 years ago. I then did a second silicon photonics company and a second generation process technology in this field called Katura. And we sold that company successfully in 2013 to another NASDAQ-listed company called Mellanox. And Mellanox is now owned by NVIDIA. Now, in those two journeys, we commercialized our platforms in optical communications and optical fiber communications, but we explored many other applications, including medical applications, but they weren't ready for prime time. However, in 2013, we founded Rockley Photonics, and we took into account, in generating a third generation silicon photonics platform, all of the applications, including medical applications, that we had seen in our previous journeys. And we wanted to create a platform that had the performance capability to be able to bridge the widest range of applications. We also saw that these applications, for example, in consumer health and wellness monitoring, would be ginormous and call for tens of millions of units a week production capability. So therefore, our third silicon photonics process platform needed the ability to be able to scale to those sorts of volumes. So in Bookham, we commercialized the technology by building our own foundries. In Katura, we started off with our own foundry, but commercialized in another foundry, in a foundry provider. And in Rockley, we are again a fabless company, and we've been greatly helped by our development foundry partners and our high volume manufacturing foundry partners. So we're addressing initially the health and wellness market in the consumer field, and this is going into consumer devices. But the technology is also designed for medical applications, and in due course, we hope to get clinical qualification for our devices for medical applications. There are further applications of the technology, not surprisingly in optical fiber communications, and we particularly focused on the use in data center optical fiber transceivers and formed a joint venture called Hentong Rockley with a fiber optic cable manufacturer, the Hentong Group, to address this particular opportunity. There are other applications beyond these, including machine vision for robotics and LiDAR for autonomous vehicles, and advanced computer AI connectivity, connecting processors together optically using our technology. And this will enable very large and powerful AI clusters to be built with significantly lower cost and power consumption and improved performance. Now, these applications, along with other applications such as advanced optical computing, are all applications that we see great potential, but those markets have yet to become large enough for full commercialization. But we have partners in these areas to take these opportunities forward in the future. So people have thought about silicon photonics for quite some time, as its major opportunity is in fiber optic communications, and there is a significant market opportunity there. But from our perspective, we actually see the health, wellness, and healthcare application of this technology to be almost an order of magnitude bigger than all the other opportunities people have contemplated in the use of silicon photonics. And this is somewhat reflected in the market data today, predictions that the health, wellness, and consumer applications will come to dominate this market in only a matter of a few years, from a position where they weren't even evident going back 12 months ago. So the way that we see the market is for our technology, for our chips and modules, is in consumer wearables, smartwatches, fitness bands, smart earbuds, and in mobile phones. And those two markets together represent $30 billion opportunity for Rockley Photonics on a 2025 time basis. And then also the medical devices market that we believe that we can address is a market opportunity on the same time frame of $18 billion. So we're starting deployment of our technology in health and wellness in consumer devices due to the fact that people are becoming more and more aware of their own health and the need to monitor their health. And the market opportunity is being created by the advent of the smart watch, which has LEDs shining light into your skin on the back of it, which measure a number of your key biomarkers, particularly your heart rate in a basic device, and for advanced devices, also your blood oxygen level. And a great deal can be gleaned from these devices. But just imagine if we could bring a million times increase in performance to the wrist in the same form factor within the power budget and within a reasonable cost. This is something that definitely consumers are very excited about. And you will see our technology in this field in consumer devices in the course of next year. But the technology we're developing here is also capable of meeting medical grade. And so we're also keen to see the deployment in a clinical setting and a clinical applications. So here's the opportunity to be able to provide technology that can continually monitor your health and potentially diagnose diseases early, allow them to be treated more effectively, to have better patient outcomes, and to reduce the cost on the healthcare system. And also this technology offers the opportunity to better optimize treatment for individuals undergoing medical care, as well as treatment for chronic conditions. All in all, this moves a lot of the burden out of the clinics and the hospital into the home, into home monitoring, and allowing individuals to carry on their lives with less disruption and reducing the cost on the healthcare system. But of course, in order to fulfill these two visions, we need a completely new technology. And that is what Rockley has developed, a completely new form of semiconductor technology in photonics to open up the opportunities as I've described. So as we look at the technology today, we have the rudimentary LED sensing technology in smartwatches. That has created the platform or the opportunity for us. We have the infrared spectroscopy sensing capability in the laboratory that can non-invasively measure many of your physical and chemical biomarkers, but it's not practical to deploy it beyond the laboratory. So what Rockley has done is develop a technology that allows a single device to be able to measure multiple chemical and physical biomarkers non-invasively. And this is achieved with silicon photonics, and within a photonic chip, numerous tiny lasers shining light into your skin in a completely harmless way and monitoring the light that comes back. And so this opens up a whole range of biomarkers that can be measured, including core body temperature from your wrist, hydration, blood pressure accurately, alcohol levels, lactate levels, glucose levels. So in this slide here, we illustrate the technology. So item number one is this breakthrough infrared spectrometer chip that can sit on your wrist, or it can press up against any part of your body where there is reasonable blood perfusion. And it's the manufacturing technology and the design of this device that it creates and enables this whole opportunity. This module is also incorporating what you see in your smartwatch today, which are the visible elements of those devices, which are good at monitoring aspects of your hemoglobin in your blood and giving you heart rate and blood oxygen levels. Now at Rockley, we're producing the Photonics, and we're also producing the entire module, including the controller chip that's within the module. This is our own ASIC, and this interfaces to what we call the host processor, which can be the processor in your watch or in a smartphone or in any other consumer or medical device. So this is coming to market in two forms. A basic form, which adds to what you see in your smartwatch today. It adds hydration level, core body temperature measured from your wrist, and accurate blood pressure. And then an advanced module, which adds, amongst other things, a range of chemical biomarkers, including alcohol levels, glucose indicator, and lactate. And we're also working with the same device, but in broadening the range of biomarkers that it can measure to include things such as album, urea, creatine, and further increasing the clinical performance of the device to obtain clinical qualification for the measurement capabilities of these biomarkers. Now this slide just gives me the opportunity just to give a little bit of insight into how profound we think this technology is. These are the major diseases that are prevalent in the US and really as the world as a whole. Now imagine if we could measure continually a range of physical and chemical biomarkers that could give you early warnings of all of these diseases. That would be tremendously helpful and drive a much better patient outcome and a much reduced cost on the healthcare system. And at the same time, monitoring these parameters for conditions, chronic conditions, and conditions that are under treatment promises great improvements in outcomes for patients. So if I just take one example on this slide here, if we look at COVID-19, it's been shown that in the early stages of contracting COVID-19, if you measure blood sugar relative to core body temperature, hydration, blood oxygen, respiratory rate, heart rate, and blood pressure, you'll get a good estimation through a machine learning model of how that patient will turn out. Will that patient become seriously ill, or will he or she not be too badly affected by COVID-19? Now, some of these parameters that you can measure in a wearable device today, but others that you have to go and be tested for. So being able to measure all of these in a single device, just sitting in the background measuring, is an incredibly powerful opportunity to be able to handle a disease like COVID-19 more effectively. Now that concept exists across many other diseases, and we just mapped a number of them on this diagram, but on the previous slide we've actually mapped the biomarkers combinations across all of the major diseases. Now, Rockley has an office in Newport and is actively working with key partners in the region. So the question is, why have we brought this technology to South Wales? And why are we developing this technology in South Wales and manufacturing? There is a long history in South Wales of working with semiconductors going back to the early 1980s and the InMOS plant. That expertise has grown to become the compound semiconductor cluster with world-leading companies such as IQE, SPTS, and NWF. There are also strong academic partners with Cardiff and Swansea universities, both having research groups and fab facilities dedicated to compound semiconductor research. Funding for collaborative research projects has been beneficial and has the recent establishment of the CSA Catapult in Newport, which underlies the importance of the local enterprise. Together, these companies and institutions are key parts of a supply chain to design and manufacture photonic components using compound semiconductors. Wales has also been a pioneer in providing universal public health and healthcare. The Welsh NHS and other health-focused organisations are potential partners for piloting new healthcare technologies, and particularly in our context, technologies and products that are being produced in South Wales. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much for the video. Well, what a start that is. Some really, really impressive technologies there, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit in the future at the end of this session around what those technologies can do in Wales for patients, how we can partner between the industry and our health professionals and health system, and also what's in it for other companies. And we saw the sort of cluster effect there at the end, the Catapult and IQE. As I said, we're going through a number of presentations, and then we'll come back to the Q&A later on in the session. So up next is Dean Harris from CanSense. I'm hoping that the magic with the presentation starting will happen as seamlessly as it did the first time around. So.
Thanks very much, Ifan, and great presentation there from Rockley. I'm sure there's real synergies between our companies that we can explore in the near future. So I'd first like to thank the organisers of Wales Tech Week for the opportunity to introduce CanSense's vision of the early detection of cancer. At CanSense, we aim to improve cancer patients' outcomes with a product that harnesses spectroscopy and AI technologies in a fast and accurate blood test. We have identified a real and pressing clinical need for the early detection of bowel cancer, where diagnosing it early makes it treatable and potentially curable, which significantly reduces the current burden on healthcare providers, and more importantly, reduces patients' mortality rates, where unfortunately Wales' performance is some of the worst in the UK. Our expert founding team brings together business, clinical and technical acumen, and is based upon 7 years of working together in research and clinical trials to refine and improve our offering to the NHS. Our vision for early cancer detection is supported by a strong patient voice, and we've been greatly well supported along our journey by strong patient and public engagement. We also have extensive clinical backing and engagement and a robust advisory team of experts to cover all bases. Onto the problem in hand. Colorectal or bowel cancer is one of the world's commonest cancers and is on the rise globally, particularly in young patients who are currently missed by the screening age cutoff and cancer referral pathways based purely on their age alone. 60% of patients continue to present at advanced late stages with with quite limited or reduced chances of survival compared with if they can be detected at an earlier stage. If we can detect cancers and really make a shift towards stage 1 and stage 2 detection, we've got a real opportunity to reverse the problem and make Wales one of the better countries for cancer performance in Europe. Early stage cancer detection makes it much more easily treatable and likely curable. And there's a real global need, as indicated by think tanks such as the James Lind Alliance, for these more convenient and more accessible tests than colonoscopy, which is currently relied on to detect cancer. As most cancers are detected through primary care, we at CanSense are giving GPs greater confidence to detect or exclude colorectal cancer with the familiarities of a simple blood test. Blood serum, which can be incorporated in a routine blood-taking panel, is interrogated in our laboratory by laser spectroscopy without the need for any expensive reagents or time-consuming DNA sequencing like competitive tests. The resultant spectral fingerprint, which can be produced in less than 15 minutes, is unique to specific cancers and is confirmed through mass spectrometry methods to reflect aberrant cancer metabolic pathways. Using known patient outcomes from our clinical trials, we have trained an AI model to correctly identify specific cancer features in distinguishing them from benign conditions such as diverticular disease, colitis, and even hemorrhoids, which can then be used by GPs to effectively triage their symptomatic patients presenting to them. This ensures rapid onward referral to secondary care for their treatment, and those who have a negative test result can be immediately promptly reassured by a familiar GP face that the symptoms are not caused by cancer. The CanSense test can address multiple points of delay in the current cancer diagnostic pathway, as our test is positioned for use the very first time the patient consults their GP with symptoms in primary care, instead of having to go back and forth several times for several consultations and ineffective treatments, where the patient can be then reassured much more quickly. The test can also guide secondary care investigations once the patient is onwardly referred, so that those at highest risk of having colorectal cancer can be prioritized. We would hope that through greater awareness of the test availability in primary care, we can make patients go and attend their GPs much earlier, and this would need to be combined with greater public awareness of symptoms, as that's really going to be the only way that advances in early detection can be made. We have validated the test in a large real-world primary care setting that we're grateful that the Welsh Government's efficiency through technology academic-led funding stream helped us to create, which is currently under consideration for publication. The sensitivity and positive predictive value of the test to detect cancer surpasses that of both the NICE guidance clinical referral pathway and the fecal-based FIT test for blood in the feces. The ability to reassure patients that the symptoms aren't cancer-related is borne out by our very high negative predictive value. Hopefully you'll all be aware of the unsustainable crisis in colonoscopy capacity that the NHS is currently facing. Our referral pathway disrupted by the CanSense technology would translate into just 4 colonoscopies being needed to detect one cancer, which is in stark contrast to the current situation where 30 colonoscopies are needed when you apply the NICE referral pathway alone. The real advantage that our test brings is its ability to detect the precancerous polyp. With a timeline of approximately 6 years from the first polyp development to becoming a cancer, there is real opportunity to detect and remove polyps by a therapeutic colonoscopy before they can become cancerous, thus offering the situation of cancer prevention, not just cancer detection. The currently used FIT test has fairly poor sensitivity for even the largest polyps at around 50%, whereas our CanSense technology shows great promise in early trials at nearly 80% sensitivity, which would lend itself nicely to a cancer screening setting. Although colorectal cancer has been our predominant route to market and aim, we also have been exploring other cancer types. Pancreatic cancer is one of the hardest to diagnose cancers and almost universally presents at late stage with very poor outcomes. Our test, however, can detect pancreatic cancer with 86% sensitivity and great specificity. And also, when you compare our ability to distinguish colorectal cancer from others, such as pancreatic cancer, we can provide 95% specificity with unique spectral differences between the two, which really lends itself to a vague cancer clinic situation. And we are developing and reaching into other cancers that are a pressing need simultaneously. There's great interest in the cancer detection marketplace, which is estimated to be worth $104 billion. Many companies in this space are focusing on DNA changes within the blood with varying degrees of success for early detection at a cost in excess often of $500 per test. Ours with CanSense is a truly unique approach with the genuine early stage detection in an accurate, rapid and affordable method, which offers a real value-based healthcare provision. Together with our partners in the NHS, we have established a 4-step strategy for adoption and scale, with an initial centralised testing facility and then reaching into NHS laboratories with scale of multiple instruments across all health boards in the next few years. We are aligned also with NHS England to embed the test in their referral pathways, and we also work with global adoption partners to meet their clinical and screening needs. CanSense are very grateful for the support of business and medtech accelerators and our funders to make early detection of colorectal cancer a reality. Our startup awards pay testament to the company's drive and ambition to change the face of cancer detection for good. Many thanks.
Dean, thank you very much indeed. Guys, everybody who's on the call or on the session, we're half an hour in, 2 fantastic presentations on photonics, diagnosis, early detection, things that are going to be industry changing. I think to a large extent we could quite easily talk for an hour about those, but as they say in the US adverts on QVC, but wait, there's more, because diagnosis is the first bit. Sometimes you can take preventative measures, as an individual, you can change your behaviors if you get that early diagnosis. Sometimes though, the NHS or other healthcare providers need to step in and need treatment. And the earlier that treatment is, usually the less traumatic it needs to be. And our next 2 speakers are from the treatment end, particularly minimally invasive and more accurate treatment. So I'm going to come first to Simon from CREO Medical, and then Jared, who I'll introduce us from the NHS, although Jared does more than just that, of course. So Simon, if I can come to you first for the next presentation.
Okay, thanks, Evan. Can everybody see my slides?
We can see your screen being shared, but you're not in slide view. You're not in presenter view yet.
Okay. There we go. Okay.
Perfect.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Simon Meadowcroft. I'm the Director of Emerging Technologies in CREO Medical. We're a Welsh. Sorry. There we go. We're a Welsh medtech company that started in 2003 with our founder, Professor Chris Hancock, who's currently on another session within the MedTech Wales forum today. Chris is a very passionate individual and is passionate about treating patients with our technology. And it's an interesting segue coming from the presentation we've just seen from Photonics and from CanSense, where they're looking at the early stage detection, as we move into the treatment piece. So CREO Medical is an advanced energy company with a platform which we call Captive, which is a multimodal technology using energy across the sort of the whole electromagnetic spectrum. We started in 2003 as a microwave-based company called Micro-Oncology. We rebranded in 2010 as CREO Medical, expanding our technology base into broader field. We launched on the stock market in 2016, and in 2020, 2021, we're continuing to expand our portfolio with a range of approved devices, both through CE marking within the UK, Europe, and the FDA within the US, which gives us access to predominantly most markets globally. I mentioned our technology we call Captive. It's based around currently 188 granted patents. We have 599 patents pending, and probably this needs updating because I know there are more that we're looking to file. It's a broad spectrum technology that, I suppose, initially for the focus market, which is therapeutic endoscopy, focuses around our bipolar RF closed loop technology for cutting and our high frequency microwave energy for coagulation and hemostasis. So ultimately, our aim is to provide the endoscopists the advanced energy platform that surgeons have had for 20 plus years. There's nothing that's really changed dramatically in therapeutic endoscopy. And our objective is to provide those endoscopists the platform to enable them to do more complex procedures in the GI tract, preventing patients going for more invasive and complex procedures, and ultimately saving the healthcare system significant sums of money, but also providing a better outcome and experience for the patients. And obviously, having seen the two diagnostic platforms earlier, it's a nice progression away from the sort of the standard approach to, you see a polyp, a large polyp, and it's moved straight into surgery. Currently, as you're probably all aware, that endoscopists use monopolar RF technology, which basically means we have to ground the patient, and there's very limited control of monopolar. So there are risks, or significant risks, of burns, perforation, lateral damage to tissues that may not have wished to activate any energy on. There is some bipolar technology, very simple, where the energy passes between two poles. So it is much more confined, but it is very much more limited to simple hemostatic approaches as opposed to more complex therapeutic approaches. So where we take it is into our chemaptive technology to provide advanced energy to the colonoscopists, enabling them to do more complex work in the GI tract. And you can see from this slide here that whilst we're giving them much more advanced energy, we're taking down the power levels significantly. So monopolar is typically around 2000 volts. Our bipolar is certainly less than 200 volts, and microwave is around 20 volts. Our microwave technology runs at 5.8 gigahertz. So it's a very fine, very precise, and very accurate technology used for hemostasis, and as part of our platform, also ablation within the for pancreatic cancers, and also pulmonary lung ablation of tumors in the lung. But it gives a very, very gentle energy and enables the clinicians to have confidence that they're going to reduce risk in the procedures they're undertaking. Obviously, going on to pick up from where Dean left off, just looking at the opportunity within the UK and polyps within the colon. Currently, we're looking at over 170,000 polyp procedures per annum. It's a large market, and obviously we want to capture those polyps early so they don't move into more advanced and aggressive forms of cancer. It's going to need more and more invasive procedures. We see a lot of opportunity to move the care pathway away from sort of surgery through into therapeutic endoscopy, and providing and in some ways freeing up more space in theatres for more complex procedures there where this sort of technology isn't applicable. We have a broad platform of devices. Our primary device we call Speedboat. It's a device designed for endoscopic submucosal dissection of lesions and polyps within the GI tract. It's a very clever piece of technology. We're very proud of it. It uses bipolar for cutting and microwave for hemostasis, but also it has an injection needle in it to provide a lift underneath the polyp in the lesion in that sort of submucosal space to enable safe dissection and removal of the polyp away from the muscle bed. We also have a range of devices that are designed to help and enable endoscopists to be able to take more complex procedures, as I mentioned, safer. So we have Speedboat Inject, which obviously has an injection mechanism in it. Our Slim, which is a thinner device, but has the same capability with the exception it doesn't have injection. Spiderbait Flex is a jaw device that is, again, an enabler for doing more complex procedures or for enabling potentially the less skilled or the juniors to do procedures they may not have the confidence and comfort to do with Speedboat. It's a bipolar cutting jaw device with microwave for hemostasis. It is the world's only bipolar cutting and microwave device. In fact, all our devices are unique. There is nothing else out there in globe that can compete with them. And we also have our slip seal device for GI bleeds. Now, one of the beautiful things about microwave is that it will propagate through a non-stick coating. So you don't need to make contact with the tissue to create the circuit for hemostasis like you do with other bipolar devices. It gives a very nice seal, very gentle seal at much lower temperatures to monopolar and bipolar, where you don't char or desiccate the tissue. And the advantage is with non-stick, it just pulls straight off the tissue, so you're not pulling any desiccated or charred plug away that's going to give you rebleeding. I mentioned earlier that we have a broader range of devices around ablation. We have Microablate Fine, which is the smallest microwave ablation needle in the world. It's very much like an FNA. In fact, it looks like a fine needle aspiration device. The needle is 0.9 millimeters in diameter and quite comfortably will give a 2 to 3 centimeter ablation. This was primarily designed for the treating cancer of the pancreas. And recently we announced it this week, we did a series of inpatient studies in December last year. One patient was palliative care. The hope was to give them the opportunity to see Christmas and the New Year. We're now into June. The patient is still very much alive. And the recent scans that they've undertaken, they cannot find the tumour. So it's an interesting situation. We're going to investigate more, and we're wondering whether it's because of the frequency of our microwave that may be having an interesting effect. We don't know, but it's something we need to investigate. And then we have the Microablate Flex, which is a flexible microwave antenna for the pulmonary work, for lesions within the lungs. And again, with our flexible camera system, we can get to pretty much any point within the lungs, periphery of the lungs, with that device because of its flexibility and its small size. So we have a very large and broad platform of devices for the GI tract and the pulmonary tract, all powered with our commutative technology through our Chroma generator. So if I can go to the next slide. So going back to Speedboat, because the premise and basis of our business initially, it provides a very precise cut. It's highly controlled with the energy delivery through microwave because of the frequency we're using at 5.8 gigahertz. Bearing in mind this device goes down a flexible endoscope. The devices range in length from sort of 1.8 to about 2.2 meters. We've managed to achieve not only putting microwave in it, bipolar, an injection needle, but we can also achieve pretty much one-to-one rotation to give accuracy for the clinicians when they're positioning and approaching the polyps and the lesions. And underneath it, in order to add another degree of safety, we've created a non-conductive hull. And it's this hull that's sort of given it its name, Speedboat. Professor Brian Saunders took a shine to it and thought it looked like a speedboat. So we've named it Speedboat, and it's sort of a name that's stuck within the market. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit of animation that will work. No. Okay. No, apologies. I had some. Oh, here we go. So this is showing the bipolar energy moving between the two poles. I think we're going to have some more technology problems. I was hoping to get to a procedure within it. No, obviously, sadly, the technology's thwarted me today. I did have some procedure video to show you how it works, how effectively and cleanly it cuts, and how effective the hemostasis is. We do have a lot of information on our Vimeo account and obviously our website as well. So if you do want to see it in action, please have a look at the website and the our Vimeo account. So we have a broad platform. We have a fantastic energy base in Chemaptive, and then so the next questions are where can we go and what can we do? Areas of interest are obviously from a flexible point of view. There's urology, gynecology, the pulmonary, ENT. Obviously, neurology is a key one with ablation technology, but we're also looking at taking our technology into laparoscopy and robotics. We have done some comparative work against other competitive products in the market, and we are very pleased and very excited by the results that our technology is delivering when compared to the established products in the market. So that's core work that's going on at the moment to extend the platform into new and other exciting areas. We also have a range of IP and technology based around cool plasma, and it's technology we've patented a long time ago, certainly pre-2007. And with the needs and requirements for the pandemic last year, we brought some of that technology forward and continue to develop it. Some key areas of interest are around decontamination of complex surgical instruments and endoscopes, and our technology, plasma technology, is achieving kill rates of 10 log 6 kills for Pseudomonas, Cryptosporidium, Strep aureus, COVID, and we've been using COVID 229E as the base for that, and a range of MRSA and other range of common bacteria and viruses found in healthcare environments. And we're looking to do some work with the units in Cardiff and Swansea, certainly around the decontamination of flexible endoscopes, particularly as our plasma was also being extremely effective in destroying biofilms. And that's something else we're going to explore within with the Welsh Institute for Wound Care with Professor Keith Harding, looking at that whole space of biofilms within complex wounds. So that's the sort of an area where we're going at the moment. Other areas within the GI tract. Oh, sorry, my thing has just collapsed. Looking at a natural progression is for our flexible devices to make them rigid, and looking at that TEMS, TO space. And again, we've reached out to the guys in Cardiff to help sort of develop some protocols and designs for up and coming technologies. So that's pretty well where we are. We're a very passionate, small, agile, advanced energy company that has grown rapidly over the last few years. In fact, with the acquisitions of Albi Medical to expand our go-to-market strategy within Europe, I think we're now close to 250 individuals. So keep your eyes open. There's a lot of exciting things going on with CREO, and we're hoping to change the care pathway for patients, moving them from invasive surgery to much more early stage, less invasive surgery within the GI tract. Thank you.
Simon, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to move swiftly on to Jared, Clinical Innovation Director, or Dean of Clinical Innovation, I think, at Cardiff and Vale University Health Board. Jared, I'm not sure if you have slides, but over to you. Screen is yours, and then we'll come back to the Q&A after that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ivan. Hopefully get my slides up now. Can we see that? Have we got a view of that?
We have. Ideal.
Fantastic. Been a great morning so far. I've really enjoyed all of those talks. What I want to talk to you about is something that is coming, and I hope will whet your appetite in terms of technology. I don't think surgery has ever been more exciting than it is at the moment because of this wealth of technology, innovation, and ingenuity that's coming into it. I need to sort of declare a couple of things as we kick off. One is I'm the Welsh Cancer Network Bowel Cancer Initiative lead, so I'm extremely biased to improving bowel cancer work. I'm also the clinical director for the Moondance Cancer Initiative, which is a philanthropic organisation dedicated to improving cancer outcomes across all different cancer groups across Wales. And most importantly, we're in the middle of a procurement process at the moment. So I need to be really careful about what I say. And if I say the wrong thing, all the lights will go off and alarms will ring and we'll all be in big trouble and I'll get arrested. So I'm going to be really generic in some of the things that I talk about, and I hope that's okay. So first of all, let's talk about bowel cancer. Bowel cancer is one of the commonest cancers in the UK, 42,000 cases a year, 17,000 deaths. In Wales, we have 1,000 people a year that die from bowel cancer and about just over 2,000 diagnoses. So it's a very common disease. The colon, or the bowel, as we're talking about it, is the large bowel. Starts on the right-hand side where your appendix goes up across the top of your tummy, comes down the left-hand side, gives a wiggle and comes out your bottom. And anywhere in that little bit of the bowel is what we talk about when we talk about bowel cancer. It's predominantly a surgically treated disease. We use radiotherapy and we use chemotherapy drugs to help, usually in a situation where we haven't caught this disease early enough. Of all the cancers, it's one of the cancers that is in many ways the best understood. We understand some of the risk factors. We understand how it starts as a polyp. We understand how it progresses. We understand a lot about its diagnosis, and we understand about its treatment. So it is really frustrating that we are not better at curing it. When I tell you, if you remember those figures, that 2,200 people a year in Wales get diagnosed with bowel cancer, but 1,000 people die, it tells you that people present late. And so if we were able to get everybody early, we would cure over 90% of bowel cancer sufferers. Because when people present late, we can only cure about 1 in 10. So it's an incredibly frustrating disease for those of us who are involved in treating it, because we know so often if patients have presented earlier or they've been able to be diagnosed earlier, we would have been able to cure their disease. It's also a very rewarding disease to treat because we do cure lots and lots of people from bowel cancer who go on to have completely and utterly normal lives. We've already heard about the CanSense technology and how that may be useful in diagnosis. It's important that we get people to engage with bowel screening programs, and it's important that we can treat things at an early stage with things such as CREO are presenting us today, when it's just within the bowel without a significantly massive operation. And we also have lots of treatments after that that will allow us to do that as safely with minimal impact on patients' lives. So as part of the Moon Dance and Cancer Initiative, we've targeted various bits of this pathway, from actually doing education in schools to helping kids understand about healthy diet, healthy living, but also about explaining to them about bowel screening tests, so that they can talk to their parents and grandparents about screening and get a lift in the number of people that uptake the offer in Wales. This currently stands at 60 to 74-year-olds get offered that every 2 years in Wales. We're desperately keen to expand that down to 50, because it's in the 50 to 60-year-old age group that we're seeing the largest number of increases in bowel cancer. Reasons are slightly unclear, but it seems to be mirrored across the world. We've done work using celebrities such as Jamie Roberts to try and do television adverts during the rugby, because men in the 60-year-old age group are the hardest to reach in terms of bowel cancer awareness. And we've also accelerated the training of nurse colonoscopists to bring them into the diagnostic field. But at the end of this, often lots and lots of patients will still need surgery. And when the Royal College of Surgeons of England and Wales looked at the future of surgery in a report in 2018, they came up with, did a wide consultation exercise and came up with a number of areas where they saw would be making a difference over the whole of the surgical spectrum over the coming decades. There were 4 key themes to this. One was minimally invasive surgery. The other one was imaging, virtual and augmented reality, this ability to put X-rays, if you like, by augmented reality on top of patients to guide surgery. Big data, genomics and artificial intelligence, all of which I'm sure we'll hear about this week. And also specialized interventions such as the idea of 3D bioprinting, printing a new tissue, a new ear, a new nose, and who knows, even a new liver one day. But minimal invasive surgery was very much at the top of this. Now, bowel cancer surgery has embraced this really since the mid-90s. The idea of putting long instruments through small incisions into the abdomen to do the same operation, removing part of the bowel, and in order to allow patients to recover quicker. What robotics brings to this takes it to another level. When we think about robotics, we tend to think of automatons, machines that can do things by themselves. That's actually not what we're talking about in robotics in surgery at this current time. It's a master-slave device. A surgeon will control the robot and control the movements of the robot as it operates within the abdomen, or the chest, or the pelvis. And what it allows the surgeon to do is it allows a much better vision, because we can use 3D technology in order to see areas in much greater enhancement, allowing us perhaps to preserve nerves and preserve function, particularly important when operating down in the pelvis. Allows us to potentially be more accurate in our incisions, and also removes any tremor there might be in the instrument. The big thing, though, I think that it brings is that, continuing the Star Wars analogy, it allows us to bring our hands into the abdomen. With traditional keyhole surgery techniques, we use a straight instrument, which effectively allows us to open and close and to turn like this. But bringing a robotic instrument allows that instrument to turn in 360 degrees in multiple areas of degrees of freedom. Allows us to be much more agile in the way we're able to make movements and do surgery. So for the surgeon, it's really exciting. And one of the difficulties is that a lot of the research into robotics, which has looked at these things that I've talked about, have been unable to translate those into really defined surgical outcomes for individual patients. And I believe that's because it's looked at the wrong things. What we need to do is think about how robots can impact the whole system in Wales. And that's why we're bringing in this robotic programme for Wales, where the initial plan is that 4 health boards, 3 in the south, 1 in the north, will have a robotic system. They will all be linked, so we'll be able to share the learning, and we'll be able to use it for many other things than just simply being able to stitch with a little bit more accuracy. This is what I see that the robotic program will do for Wales as a catalyst. It will enable us to reduce the inequity of access, allowing people, for example, in the north to get access to robotic prostatectomy. It will give us the highest quality assurance that we can get, because the data we can pull off robotic systems allows us to ensure that everybody is operating at the highest level, literally. It will allow us to concentrate expertise in difficult surgery around a robotic program, and it will be really important in terms of staff retention and recruitment. People will want to come and work here because they'll see this as very forward thinking. Crucially, I think that robotic captures the imaginations of the public, and I remember certainly in the beginning early 90s, when keyhole surgery was first starting, people were actually really keen to have their surgery done in that way, and I think we can capture that with regards to robotics as well. And getting better engagement and education amongst the Welsh public about screening programs and consulting early is one of the key things to us improving our bowel cancer outcomes. What we're describing is actually world leading. There are many, many robotic systems in many, many hospitals around the world, but there's nowhere that I'm aware of that have linked this up in one health system in one country. And that is why what we're doing is so different and so exciting. People have said to me, as we come to the end of this procurement process at the moment, and what we're procuring from industry is a robotic partner. We're not procuring for robots, we're procuring a partner that's bought into and invested in this concept of us changing Wales and changing cancer outcomes. And we'll be working with gynecologists and thoracic surgeons and liver surgeons as we go through this process. But people have said, is it part of COVID recovery? Well, I think it is. I think it is because lots of organisations are now invested in this. And the point is, we know that COVID has really impacted on cancer outcomes. Our cancer outcomes will be worse this year than they've ever been before. We know that we have lost people with cancer in terms of we don't know where they are because they haven't come forward. We presented our data from Cardiff, which showed that twice as many people in 2020 presented as emergencies as they did the year before and the year before that, because they presented late. We need to get out there. We need to move the conversation as we start to live in a safer world, albeit still living with COVID, to getting people reassured that it's safe to come back to hospital. We also got a demoralised and tired workforce, and these are the kind of initiatives that will stimulate the workforce and make Wales an exciting place to come and work again. So I think it's very much part of the COVID recovery, and we're really excited to be a part of this. Happy to talk about it all in a non-specific generic way as we go forward. But thank you very much for listening.
Diolch, Jared. Thank you very much, and thanks to all of our presenters for those slides. We've got around just over 20 minutes left of this session, so I'm just going to try and wrap for 2 or 3 minutes. I've got a Star Wars a comment which I won't be able to resist after those slides. Then we've got a couple of minutes video on the Life Sciences Hub, and I'll give that a quick intro, and then we'll move to Q&A. So can I just encourage all of those people in the audience as we go through this next 3 or 4 minutes just to put some questions up. So first the Star Wars bit. So I think that's really exciting. You're gonna have to bear with me. It's a Monday morning, so please give me a laugh. And I can't see the audience obviously, but the precision medicine here, it is unbelievably sensitive stuff. So this is, I sense a disturbance in the force type thing. I can see Dean is smiling at least, so that's good. I'm going with it. A lot of the interventions are ultimately about frequency, wavelength, light, obviously. So, you bring an absolutely tiny lightsaber to bear in terms of your intervention. This is game-changing stuff. And I know we've been here before, and I know it takes quite a long time for medtech often to translate into health. Genomics, there have been 20 years of discussion about the genomics revolution. But I think we really are in a different place at the minute. And for those who are not on board with that, then as our friend Darth Vader would say, I find your lack of faith disturbing. Anyway, so one thing that I'm going to comment on, well, then I got a laugh from Simon as well there, so that's all going very well. Personalized medicine and precision medicine. This is a session on photonics and precision medicine. You'll have seen the precision stuff about just how small and how accurate the diagnostics are and the interventions are as well. But people often use personalized and precision in an interchangeable kind of way. So I just want to say something very sort of briefly about those, I think. And there's a lot about this sector that is about, and we saw this in the very first slide, about how things are becoming very, very small and they're becoming very, very cheap. Particularly because of silicon and photonics and the way those things come together. And we're seeing quite a lot of consumer disruption in this space. Google have just brought out teledermatology on an iPhone. These are about putting devices in the hands of individuals. This is classic innovators disruption. If you read books by guys like Clayton Christensen from the US, this is how industries are transformed, by putting cheap, small things that are good enough into the hands of consumers, and then they drive changes in the system. And this is going to push that disruption into health. So just personalized to begin with, these are things like smartwatches, glucose sensors. They're things like, so cardio sensors, things that people will buy, they'll be embedded into smart devices, etc. They're really about prevention, self-management, flagging and alerting to individuals so they can manage the chronic conditions, or they can catch things that allow them to influence their behaviors. And this is going to be, patient power, I suppose, to some extent. Some of the other things that we've discussed are about precision. So things like the, optic, I don't even know how to say it, Raman spectroscopy and interference in optics and wavelength interference, stuff like that. Some of the genomics, this is about accurately identifying things and at really, really, really low concentrations. So circulating blood tumor DNA, ultimately even in breath, looking for cancer indicators and markers in breath. The sensitivity of these instruments is almost like astronomy, and the sensitivity of astronomy stuff. There's a remarkable amount of translation, I suppose, between some astronomy technologies. It's about the accurate and the early detection. And where this absolutely starts to blow your mind is the convergence between the two. When we move to point of care diagnostics that are also accurate, that are also cheap and small and embedded and fit and forget, you just wearable tech, and that they are they're accurate in the sense of it's a definite yes or no. That will really drive, patient power as people get to own their health, which is something which is really clear in Welsh government policies. It's for all health systems really, but moving towards more self-empowerment for patients. There's a few years now since the statement on precision medicine, some really exciting things. And, to come back to that thing about Darth Vader, and I find your lack of faith disturbing, precision medicine is not new. The pregnancy test is precision medicine. In the 70s, you'd go to the doctor, usually a male doctor, and he'd say, you're probably pregnant, or you're pregnant-ish. And now you go to the optician, you go to the pharmacy, you buy a stick and you wee on it, and it tells you that you definitely are or you're definitely not. Right? So that is point of care, precision, cheap, disposable, accurate stuff. And 20 years from now, that's maybe where we will be for other illnesses that currently we still have that kind of probably, yes, further investigation is required. So that's there just to frame some comments. I haven't looked at them yet. Before I go, I just want to run a short 2-minute video on the Life Sciences Hub. We'll have a Q&A, but this is about what we do after and how we bring all these things together. Life Sciences Hub exists to do this, done fantastic work in terms of COVID response, marshaled thousands of offers of support from industry, hundreds in the digital space, and is there to convene the system to bring all the different parties together, from innovators to businesses to investors to the health system to patients as well. And I'd encourage you to stay in touch with the Life Sciences Hub. If we go for 2 minutes, and then we'll move to the Q&A panel discussion after that. That's great, thanks. Apologies that the sound wasn't working on that video there, but as I said, the hub is there to convene and to support these things. It's very, very exciting times in terms of med tech and life sciences generally. So that's my first question to the panel, I think. It's been a really seismic change over the last 12 to 18 months. UK government, investors globally, Welsh government through things like Tech Week, this is the second since last year, really doubling down on medtech. And I just want to ask, what is it that you think is most, what is it that for you is most exciting about where we are, and that you really want to get your hands on and push hard on? Can I come to anybody who makes eye contact? Let's see, Jared, you're the one who's closest to making eye contact with me first. So Jared, can I come to you first?
I think where we are at the moment is that we've got strength across Wales, and the traditional barriers between the life science sector and the NHS are coming down, which means that, it used to frustrate me 5, 6, maybe 10 years ago when I'd hear that Wales was open for business, and I used to see all the frustrations that there were between working with the life science sector from within the NHS. And I think that we've seemed to have developed a much more mature relationship with industry. And the fact is that in order to have a vibrant sector in Wales, we need to have an NHS that trusts its life science sector and vice versa, so that we can move forward together. And that is what we're seeing now. And I think I'm really hoping it heralds a brave new era. Is that's what you're referring to, is it? Or?
Yeah, no, Jared, perfect pitch, 60-second answers. We can get through more discussion that way. Can I come to can I come to Dean next?
Sure, of course. I mean, Wales is just the right perfect size, I think, with a 3 million population that doesn't have a great amount of mobility, so you can track patients over a longitudinal period of time to see what their outcomes really are. We have got a great relationship between industry and the NHS to rapidly test and break down the barriers to adopt new technologies, such as you've seen on show today. I mean, why should it take 10, 15 years for technology to be evaluated and go through all the regulatory hurdles and be adopted when it's going to be out of date as soon as it is launched? I'm sure we've got real opportunity to all work together to bring the technologies to the NHS and to patients much more quickly than ever before.
Great, thanks, Josh. Dean, Simon? You're on mute, my first of the week.
Someone says often the best button to press for me. I'd echo what Dean and Jared have said. It's certainly improved from an industry point of view. It's certainly improved over the last few years. The barriers have come down. The investment is in there, and obviously CREO Medical has received significant investment in its early days from the Welsh Bank when we were looking for funding. What has changed is that interaction. We're working much more closely now with the big centres within Wales. I mentioned in my piece about doing some work with the guys in Cardiff, both just clinically and also in the peripheral service areas around sterile services. As a company, we've invested very heavily in working with the universities. We have a very strong relationship with Bangor University, and a lot of our engineers are MScs and PhDs that we've put through that bring their skills and knowledge and technology into the company, and that enables us then to go out and work with the clinicians around some of the ideas we have. And Wales is I've worked globally in many businesses, but Wales is a really nice, tight community, and it's an easy one for businesses to engage with and work with. So it's not perfect, but I think going forward there seems to be much more of an appetite now to engage with industry, to work with industry, and see the value that we bring, not just in the technologies we have for helping patients and providing better care, but also the skills and knowledge and value we bring into the Welsh economy per se.
So I'm going to stick with you and go in reverse order this time around. So you're on market, right? In both senses, you know, you're selling across Europe, but you're also listed. What is it around, or what would those investors want to see you being able to deliver from your Welsh partners, or you know, what's the sort of the secret sauce that you'd like more of to you know, to help grow your business and attract extra funding to grow more quickly?
I suppose the primary one all investors want to see is technology adoption, seeing the technology used and adopted within the markets. Obviously, our closest market is within Wales, but also to see the progression of the technology from where it is into expansion into new areas. The one thing we have with our combative technology, it's very broad and flexible where we can go. We've mentioned about therapeutic endoscopy, but areas of interest to us are obviously laparoscopic surgery, robotics, some of the diagnostic pieces we're looking at with regard to Raman spectrometry. But the key bit for investors is to know that technology has been adopted, but also we're getting support within the healthcare system to bring that technology in and to help make that difference.
Thanks, Simon. And look, Dean, you know, CanSense is in a different life stage to some extent to CREO Medical, and there's this balance between proving the technology and getting ready to scale or getting ready to market. You know, the UK government is pushing really hard in its innovation funding for market-ready, world-beating technologies and platforms, and life sciences medtech a really big part of that. So you're partnering, you know, with other businesses or with universities, with the NHS across Wales. How does that feel to you? What would you like more of or less of?
Well, I think the engagement and support from Welsh Government and from the Life Sciences Hub has been brilliant in helping us shape our funding applications to really accelerate our technology. But what I would really like to see is better access and support to designing the clinical trials necessary for UK CA marking and post-market clinical trials. And also, I mean, we've got a wealth of opportunity to use our CanSense test, not just for early detection of colorectal cancer, but other areas too. I mean, you could expand it to become predict the role of chemotherapy once the cancers have been treated, and you could mean people wouldn't necessarily have to undergo chemotherapy if they weren't going to benefit from it. You could use it as a recurrence detection in colorectal cancer, and also expand it into almost any other cancer platform that you can think of. I mean, with breast cancer, for example, we see the same problems there, where the conversion rate to people attending an urgent suspected breast cancer clinic is very low. It's more like sort of 5%. But if you could rapidly reassure patients going to the GP with breast symptoms that it wasn't cancer related, then that again would really significant economic advantage for the NHS and for Wales. So it's really translatable technology, and it's working with partners to get a steer on what's needed and where the priority areas really are.
Jared, I'm going to come to you in a second, but Dean, can I just dig into what's the rate limiting factor? Okay, so it's a technology which is translatable, as you described. It could be applied to new cancers, to new areas, to new sites, and various other stuff. So what's holding you back? Is it money, people, partnerships, or all of the above?
I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I mean, you have to get the right clinical trials and performance evaluation studies to satisfy the CE mark and UK CA mark. And, you know, trials are expensive. I mean, Simon will know this. They, you know, cost just shy of £1 million per trial to really make that gains through. I think we're quite well set up in Wales for academic funding, but I think less so for sort of early stage medtech companies such as us. We'd really want to see an improvement in that. I mean, we've got our regulatory runway to gaining a CA mark within 2 years, all going to plan. But we really need support around the clinical trials to support that and give the confidence to clinicians who are going to be ultimately using the test that the product has been rigorously evaluated.
Dean, thanks very much. So, Jared, look, I mean, we can't share the plans for the Death Star because we're in a procurement space here at the moment. But the NHS has got the NHS in Wales has got a really strong priority about patient benefit and clinical practice and quality and safety. But the current strategy of Healthier Wales also sets out that the NHS has got an important role in supporting the economy, working with industry partners and others. Call that foundational economy, call that all policies in health, call it whatever you want. What's your experience of finding that balance between so we're protecting the interests of both and recognizing them properly, but also what's changed in the last 3 to 4 years?
I think, well, bringing right back to your introduction at the beginning of this session, if you look at the last 15 months, the thing that has changed is our recognition of the importance of agility and being able to get on and make some decisions and move things forward. And I think that was improving generally, but I think the last 15 months has shown us that if we just get on and do things, it may be that we have to change tack and change direction slightly, but that's much better than not doing anything. The other thing I think that people forget is how absolutely fundamental the health system is as an employer, as whether it's electricians or gardeners or people who work in the canteen or for every single part of Wales. And therefore, there are very few schools that do not have multiple children whose parents work in the local hospital. And so it's a fundamental bedrock of actually society, away from just health. So everything that we do to engage staff, to improve the care of patients and to have a happy workforce and happy patients, has a knock-on effect throughout the whole of society within a country like Wales. And we mustn't lose sight of that as we go forward, because a lot of innovation traditionally is an exercise in tenacity, and we've got to keep the momentum up.
So I was going to ask you a question to finish about if you had Eluned Morgan and Vaughan Gething here in front of you, what would you say they needed to do as Welsh ministers? Although obviously government on its own doesn't transform everything, but instead I'm going to give you a really hard question. It's just popped up in the stream here, right? Which is how to engage with the hard to reach. So it's all very exciting, isn't it? I could talk about personalized medicine, consumer devices, smartphones, whether it's the Libra system for diabetes, but these tend to be available to people who can afford them, people who are digitally connected, and there's a risk that they will reinforce and make even worse the inverse care law that was invented in Wales 50 years ago, unbelievably, that those most in need of services find it most difficult to access them. And I'm not trying to bring us down at the end of a conversation. There's a lot of hugely exciting stuff. But is there anything that we just need to think of? And I won't come to everybody because we're going to run out of time. But is there anything that we just need to bear in mind to try to make sure that the benefits of these technologies are equally spread across our whole population? Jared, your mic is still on, so do you want to go first if you want to? But if anybody wants to just suggest something there, then I'll just wrap up.
I think that we need to have there are two types of hard to reach. There's the hard to reach because of what you've just described, social inequity, and there's hard to reach who've got their ears shut and don't want to change, and they can be right across the whole of our culture. We just should ignore them, and they will come. The ones that are hard to reach because of social inequity, we have to put right at the front of everything we do, because I think that is the purpose of the national health system, and I think that's one of the reasons we do it as well as we do.
Dean?
That's so important because at CanSense we're very much about equality, diversity, and inclusion. I mean, we're building all of our AI models on patients from right across the whole spectrum, including those who are traditionally difficult to reach. And you would hope that once this technology is available and embedded, then Mr. Jones, who sat in the Avon Valley with his bleeding hemorrhoids, going on to his wife daily about the problem, but won't go to his GP. You can imagine Mrs. Jones telling him to, just go and see the doctor and just go and get that blasted blood test done and just reassure us that it's all fine. I mean, we would hope that simple technologies such as this can really reach out to make people want to consult about their symptoms. And that's, I think, the only way we're really going to make big differences and inroads into the cancer survival problem that we've got at the moment.
Excellent. Thank you. Simon, unless you put your hand up and you want to come in, I'll wrap. Okay. So I'm going to wrap there. So diolch yn fawr iawn I bawb. Thanks to the panel presenters, especially. Thanks to the Life Sciences Hub and team that have supported these slides and other things in Wales Tech Week as well. Thanks to all of those of you who have listened in and offered comments and questions. Please feel free to continue with that. Link in with the Life Sciences Hub, and if there are opportunities to work with our speakers or with other businesses, industry and the NHS in this sector, then do that, and the Life Sciences Hub is there to support you. I'm going to leave you with just a reflection, I guess, on taking lessons from Welsh football. Obviously, a fantastic example going on at the moment of our success in the second European Championships. For a country the size of Wales to do that well in the European Championships is incredible, isn't it? 10 years ago, we were 120th in the international rankings or something like that. And now, we're competing with countries that are 20, 30 times the size of Wales, and winning fans and recognition and profile across Europe and the world. We've even got Hollywood stars owning Welsh football clubs, and it's absolutely hilarious to follow Ryan Reynolds. So let's not kid ourselves. It can't be done. Wales can be really, really good at some things and can really cut through. Bowel cancer is an example that we've seen today, but also some of the precision and the personalized medicines and diagnostics that we're doing. There's a quote from somewhere or other that says, don't think that a small group of committed people can't change the world, because that's the only thing that ever has. So on that optimistic note, I hope you enjoy the rest of Wales Tech Week. For those of you who are able to attend other sessions, there are lots of exciting sessions, multiple tracks, multiple stages. Thank you very much for joining this presentation. Thanks to everybody who's contributed to it and participated. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi gyd. Hwyl fawr.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.